cutting edge of anomaly research. You are about to experience The Evidence with your host, 3D pioneer and image analyst with Mars X3D, D.W. Gannett.
Hi there, and welcome to the no-nonsense, cutting-edge Mars Anomaly channel, Mars X3D. This is your buddy Dave, and if you're new to the channel, we're glad you're here. This is a very different kind of channel for a number of different reasons. The primary one, though, is that we offer you the evidence in X3D stereo. Now, X3D is a simple viewing technique that you can learn below at the link. There's a video tutorial, and most people can learn this technique in just a couple of minutes. And when you do, your entire computer monitor turns into a window, a 3D window, onto the surface of Mars. And at that moment, you become one of the Proud Weirdos, or Proud Weirdos First Class, or even a Proud Weirdo Ascension class, which brings to mind a shout out to our good friends Jimmy Bob and the Cross-Eyed Explorer, the CEE. And thank you very much for your generous support. And they're a family that gets out the popcorn and puts these episodes on the big screen, and they enjoy going to Mars with the rest of us. And I hope you do too. There's so many channels that speculate wildly. They overuse Photoshop, they doctor images to create confirmation bias or even outright fakery just to get clicks. We don't do that here. I'm more interested in the truth, personally. I don't need to convince you of anything. I want to present to you the truth as I see it. I may speculate on these images, but that's all it is speculation. I'd prefer that you view these in X3D and make up your own mind about it. So, some of you who have trouble with X3D, stick around. We have a little bit of a bonus section at the end where people who can't do X3D for whatever reason can at least view some of the anomalies in a special 3D process called Wiggle 3D. That's fun too. Anyway, enough talking. Let's get around to some looking. We have a lot of OOGIs today, and we're going to start out with a new name, RICARDO TANORI, and some items that he found in Percy 866. Now, that's a strange-looking item inside the yellow box. But did you notice this? In the background, we have these two items that kind of look like stoplights. So let's take a quick look at those. We're going to be at the pixel breakup point, but they're worth taking a peek at. The one in front has enough non-fractal angles to qualify it as an artifact. You can plainly see the right angles and in fact, it's a hollow structure with these knobs on top. And the one in back is similar, but pretty indistinct, so we're going to leave that in the OOGI class. Except for that tombstone slab lying up against it on the left. There aren't many non-fractal angles in this piece, but it is awfully compelling, isn't it? Yuri Kono is another new name to me, and he's been presenting some interesting finds lately. I'm probably butchering his name. Forgive me. It's spelled Y-U-R-I-J. So I don't know if that's Yuri or if it's Urij. American English, right? Anyway, we're looking at Curiosity 1384 dead center. The OOGIs we find on Mars often have a very striking appearance. They're not necessarily anomalies, and yet they stop the eye. They arrest our attention and make us wonder, what in the world is this? It's likely just geology. But if you look in the background on the left and then right above the anomaly in the background in the middle, you have two non-fractal blocks, which almost certainly are artifact candidates, but they're not clear enough to do a good zoom in on them. So let's keep moving. Here's another OOGI pointed out by Yuri. So let's move in a little bit, have a closer look. This one is a puzzler. It's probably geology, but do you see that little white triangle about a third of the way up? And what about that curved, dished out rectilinear section sticking out from the side at 90 degrees? It's got regular markings on either side and on its face, and of course the regular markings on the top. It can be argued this is simply sedimentary stone that's been eroded and fractured in a certain way. Nevertheless, it is a puzzler. Here's another one that Yuri pointed out in 1384, and isn't that an interesting looking formation? And I'm wondering, did you notice these couple of other things in the background? The magenta arrow just above it is pointing at a frame, perfect 90-degree angle. I'm going to go ahead and call this an artifact. And then go up to the white arrow. You have a perfectly square plate with, well, they're not wheels, but they look like wheels, knobs at each of the four corners. And then the blue arrow on the right is pointing at a perfect block. These are structural elements, in my opinion. But let's take a closer look at that one down in front. What a strange looking piece, whatever this is. You can hardly blame people for jumping all over it and saying, oh, it's a ray gun, or it's a tank, or it's some this or that, whatever. But what is questionable about it is the lower right. You see those two right-angled pipes, one above the other, sticking out. You know, how exactly does that erode like that? And that piece sticking out in front, how does that happen without breaking off? Very interesting. It does have that almost a glint of metal to it, but, well, again, we're going to stick with OOGI for now. And before we leave this one, I wanted to show you something it reminded me of back in Sol 1077. I call it lava tech. It does look mechanical. It's probably just lava, but it's one of those things like the one that Yuri pointed out that just stops you in your tracks and you go, what are we looking at? Every now and then we get a little bit lucky and get something that's kind of close to the camera. So here's one that Rami Bar Ilan pointed out. And you can see it even without much magnification. Well, let's go ahead and zoom in. Isn't this interesting? That perfectly formed mouse hole on the right side with the perfectly even beveled edge all around the little arch. The arch itself is symmetrical. And then you have that little round window in the top center. So you have to ask yourself, is this a dwelling of some kind? Let's get just a little bit closer. I suppose that in an attempt to be rational, we could say that erosion is accountable for this, but someone has pointed out the evenness of the sand just inside the entrance, as if it had been leveled. But, you know, that would also conform to the deposition of smaller grains with out of a vortex from wind swirling around that corner. So who really knows? But this is a very compelling find by Rami Bar Ilan. Here's an interesting half-hidden one that I ran across in Percy 845, green arrows pointing it out, and let's move in. We've seen more than a few rocks that have been hollowed out by erosion, especially in the Percy photos from the Z-cams, and this may well be another one of them, but it is awfully even and circular and symmetrical. And I'm going to take us into the breakup point and let you have a look at it and see what you think. This really does give the appearance of being manufactured, but absent being able to just walk around the boulder and pick it up, it's going to remain an OOGI. And for our final OOGI today is another one by Yuri Kono from Percy 866. And this is very strange in the sense that I haven't seen these types of accretions on boulders before on Mars. It's just a completely different formation than what I'm accustomed to seeing. So it's unusual in that respect, geologically. And it could be an artifact of some kind, but for now it's our last OOGI of this episode. Time to jump into our artifact candidates. And as you know, if you watch this channel or follow any kind of Mars anomalies, we find a lot of pyramids on the surface of Mars. And this could well be another one at quite some distance. This one is from Curiosity 554. This is as close as we're going to get. And, it could be a huge boulder tilted on its side. And if that's the case, well, it does have a 90-degree angle, and those sides are arrow straight. If it's a pyramid, well, we don't really see building blocks, although it could be covered with dust and sand, I suppose. But the dead giveaway is, once again, those arrow straight sides. So this will remain an artifact candidate. Next up is something pointed out by Bob Friedman from one of Nev T's gigapans on, let's see, that's a ChemCam 3719. And you can see it in the side of the hill, those boulders there inside the yellow box, what appear to be doors. Those seem to be surprisingly even cutouts in what I assume to be solid rock. And did you notice this, cinnamon roll rolled up in the entrance? I don't know what that is, but it sure is strange. Here's an interesting one pointed out by our own Neville Thompson in Curiosity 3873. And as you probably know, Nev won the very first Forbidden Knowledge Anomalist of the Year award in Miami this past end of July. Congratulations go out to Nev. And let's go in and see what Nev found for us. These images were taken by the M34 mass cam. That's a low resolution wide angle camera, and that's why these images are even more blurry than they normally are, although Nev's done a great job of clearing them up. Anyway, you can clearly see a circular mechanism of some kind embedded in the rock with any number of cross pieces, a central hub with a surrounding collar, and this does bring to mind something that our colleague Chris Maroney found a couple years back. Chris found this in Curiosity 1285, and you can see the similarity. I'm going to go ahead and switch back to the one Nev found, and you'll be able to compare the two pretty easily. See what I mean? Here's one pointed out by a very sharp-eyed Alexander LIAH, who, by the way, is the only person on our Facebook site who posts anything in X3D, so good on you, Alexander. Anyway, this is from a little tiny thumbnail from Curiosity 3389, and that's why the window is messed up on this one, because the anomaly is smack dab in the corner right up against the border, and the only way to show you is to ruin the stereo window. Being a tiny panoramic thumbnail, this is really, really grainy and pixelated. I did the best I could to clean it up so you could see clearly, but look at that symbol on that rock, if that's indeed what it is. This is the traditional spiral symbol indicating a portal or infinity or space used by ancient cultures on Earth. Is that what it represents here? We don't know. But very, very good find by Alexander LIAH. Here's a nice view from Percy 837, and in the yellow target, something Sarah Runcie pointed out. And here we have another one of the ubiquitous triangles that we find all over Mars, it seems. And this one has a little extra markings on it. Hard to believe that this is geological. That seems quite deliberate to my eyes. And it does bring to mind this other one. This one was in Curiosity 540 mass cam, and a perfect right angle triangle. And there are a whole bunch more, but these are just two examples that I wanted to share with you. To give you an idea of what a fussy pants I am, here are a couple spheres that I located in Percy 840. They're a little bit hard to see, especially in this view, but as we zoom in, you'll see what I mean. These two spheres are kind of hard to see because of their parallax, but the arrows are pointing them out. Point is, we do have these hematite blueberries that are all over Mars, but these are way bigger than the hematite blueberries. So my point I'm making here is that we find them a lot, and let me show you a few more. These are big spheres, some as much as 6 to 8 feet across, like this one and the one previous. So who's making them? Where do they come from? How does that happen? It doesn't happen naturally. It's like the spheres pictured here in the inset, the ones in Costa Rica, that have no explanation. We don't know how whoever made them were able to shape such hard stone so perfectly. And what's interesting is that the heart of each one of these stones has a black stone, and they've cut these open to find that out, and there are indeed right in the center black stones. But that's another puzzle for another day. Our friend Raymond GLASSFORD out in Arizona shared this one with us just recently, and it's really a pretty good find. I would have passed over it, I think, but he saw it. So here it is. This really does look like an X carved into the face of this stone. In fact, the near vertical section of the X looks like it has an arrow on the end of it. And why is there that knob right in the center? Is this signage of some kind? And what about those divots down to the lower right? Do they have a meaning? Or is it all just geology? Here's a strange grouping of stones that I found in Percy 849. Take a look at this for a few seconds, and then I'll start pointing a few things out. Notice the domed top to this rectangular pillar. Is that an eye carved into the stone, or just erosion? And notice the perfectly rectangular face of this piece. And then there's this cubical piece with knobs in the corner, top and bottom. This is a rather interesting collection of stones, if that's indeed what they are. Here's another one from Yuri Kono in Percy 866. What a strange looking object. Is it erosion? Well, it's pretty symmetrical all the way around. So jury's out on this one. That's why we're calling it an artifact candidate. That deep curve, its hollow nature, the fact that it's rectangular, kind of looks like a skate's egg. Let's take another quick look at it at the pixel breakup point. You know, it's so smooth and looks metallic. I'm tempted to think that this is a relic of some kind, but it's just not clear enough to make that call. And here's one I ran across in Percy 859, and this is the last of our artifact candidates today. This reminded me of a drill bit. Have a look at this next insert. The resemblance to an earthly drill bit is rather startling. It's really quite close. So is that what this is? Is this a cast-off relic from mining operations, drilling operations on the surface of Mars? Or is it again just crazy geology? And our one and only artifact for this episode is one shared with me again by Raymond GLASSFORD, and this is from Percy 840. As we get a little closer, you can immediately see the angles, the symmetry, the curves. So let's move in tight and see what we have. For some of you, this may not be overly dramatic or impressive, but what shouts out in this image are the mathematical angles that are present, the right angles on the top, the symmetry, the thickness, even thickness, the curve, and then you have that curved portion underneath. So I am convinced that this was a structural element, obviously in a building or some other kind of structure, and it is, in fact, an artifact. As we go to press, we'd like to welcome Kevin Mulligan, who has upgraded to Proud Weirdo Ascension class. You're going to get your own fanfare next time, Kevin, I promise you. We don't have a lot of the Wiggle 3D just because a lot of them don't translate well to this. But for all you proud weirdos out there, you know who you are. Stay safe and stay weird. This is your buddy Dave, over at Mars X3D. Be well.